So before we get started, just for those of you listening at home later, what we'll be doing every third week. So Monday, and then in 3 weeks' time, another Monday, we'll be having these little coffee chats with industry and a chance for people to ask questions. Um, I'll spotlight you, Olivia. Perfect. And basically get a feel for, journeys of different folks in the industry, different pathways they've gone, things maybe looking back that they might have done differently, some tips and tricks, and just a chance to kind of get a better feel for how diverse and eclectic your journey in the exercise and sport and exercise physiology space might look. So for our first one, we've got one of my, I was trying to count how long ago I would have taught you, like 10 or 11 years.
Yeah. Maybe not quite. Maybe
No, maybe not that one. No,
20.
3, 4, 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Oh. But thanks for coming along. Oh,
Great.
so we will jump in with a nice, easy question. What's usually in your cup?
Oh, well,
Your coffee or tea?
water and electrolytes currently.
Good choice.
But normally in my tea is just specifically decaffeinated English breakfast tea with the tiniest bit of honey, tiniest dash of milk, and then like half filled and then cold water to fill it up.
Smart.
Very specific.
That's good. Oh, that way it's drinkable straight away.
Exactly. What's in your?
I've got a long black with a little bit of like MCT oil. Apparently it helps spread the caffeine rather than kick it, but it is far too hot, so I'm just kind of waiting
Yeah.
for it to cool down. So, well, thank you for joining me today.
Nice.
I am recording if that's all right, but if there's any time you want me to stop or anything, let me know.
Oh,
And then I'll be kind of sharing this around.
yeah.
But what we'll start off with is, can you just give us a little bit about what you do these days and kind of, I guess, what your job title is or that side of things, the current situation.
I guess current job title would be part-time exercise physiologist, part-time support worker, part-time Pilates instructor.
Nice. Oh, I love it.
A lot of things in my week.
Yes. Goodness. Let's start with the Pilates instructor and we'll work our way towards the EP. So what is that kind of look like? You crossed a few different studios, out of a clinic itself,
Yeah, so
online.
no, but that would be a great space to delve into. So reformer Pilates teaching at the women's health clinic that I actually like practice as being an EP out of in Coolangatta. Um, so we do a lot of like mums and bubs classes, pregnancy classes, and then just your traditional like normal, don't have to be pregnant or postnatal classes, as well as clinical Pilates classes. So, really good for those that are maybe coming back from total knee replacement or just any type of injury and they're not ready to go into a traditional Pilates class, then they can do their own individual program still in a supervised environment. Yeah.
Nice. Is that all reformer based?
Yes, but we have quite a few dumbbells and other equipment there as well. So particularly more so with the clinical, yeah,
Mm.
was total knee replacement. Then we'd be putting in other strength exercises in their program as well. So there's a bit of space just off to the side in the room. If they're doing any like pure strength movements, then they can do that there too.
Oh, that's fantastic. Good. And the support worker side of things, is that something you did kind of during university or picked up after, or
Yeah,
what
didn't
led to?
during uni. It's more of a recent kind of addition. I'm also did sports trainer stuff during uni. So my one of my best friends who I actually went through uni with, she started her own business, which is both EP and support work,
Hmm.
primarily working with NDIS, young female neurodiverse population, which is really cool. And so obviously there's quite an overlap with those clients that need support work as well as EP service.
Mm.
And it basically just one of her other support workers was going on placement, and so she needed some shifts covered. And I was like, sure, like I'll do it. And ended up just really loving it, and particularly with this one girl. And it was just such a nice way to break up my week and to not just be in a clinic all the time and to just be out and about and like just not in an office, like to be literally outside doing fun things in nature was really beneficial for me, obviously, as well as the client. And then that just merged into some permanent shifts. And then as that has kind of grown and I've taken on more and more support work clients, and so mostly still working with females, but not just like teenagers, like into their 20s and 30s as well, particularly neurodiversity, mental health, and just helping them to access the community and taking them to appointments, or if they've got like some errands to run but they can't drive or they're just not confident to go out into the community themselves. So still really rewarding, like as EP tip,
Mm.
but it's not in an office in a clinic. It's nice.
That's lovely, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, but it's interesting. Like it's definitely one of those job areas we're seeing grow in our student population as well, and just the richness of skills and experience you get from it too. Like you said, having to adapt, but just that communication and your own mental health as well. You're kind of getting a not a break. Like we love what we do, but just
But
that
yeah,
refreshing. Because
exactly.
it is a profession we see in the exercise and ex-phys space, especially the number of people that leave the profession after a few years. So I think it's you know great having that consideration of how can I keep my passion here and stay connected and use those skills, but
Mm,
also maybe some things that help my own health as well.
exactly. Yeah. Break the burnout cycle.
Yeah, fantastic. Oh, good quote. And then tell us about your EP side of things.
Yeah, so the women's health clinic where I do the Pilates, so I also like practice out of there a couple days a week. So they are a predominant pelvic floor physio clinic. So there's a lot of obviously internal referrals, which is
Mm.
great. So maybe they've been seeing someone, they've just seen someone postnatal, they've cleared them in terms of their ab separation, their pelvic floor, and now the client's wanting to get back to like a return to running program, return to gym, return to netball. So then that's when they'd normally come and see me, and then we work towards those specific goals, which like the physios can do, but one, they like just being able to give them to me and it frees them up to do the pure pelvic floor stuff. And two, obviously, we have a little bit more of your detailed rehab exercise specific stuff. But I also, not just pelvic floor and women's health stuff there, like we'll just get kind of general referrals from doctors. And then the other side of it, my best friend's company that I do the support work through, I also do EP through there as well. So home visit and telehealth based, which again is some really good variety. Um, a mixture of conditions that I see through there, probably more into the invisible illness realm. So hypermobility, POTS, long COVID,
Mm.
but obviously such a high correlation with women's health and such an overlap too. So my worlds do all kind of blend into one.
Yeah, fantastic.
So that's my
Gosh,
week.
just a casual. Well, we were going to do a day in the life, but that was be slightly chaotic.
Hey.
So we might kind of back it up a bit. So we'll go back to kind of work back towards shortly after graduation. Where did you find yourself?
So I got a job where I did placement. So it was, yeah, nice. So that's where you put your best foot
I
forward
love that.
on. um, it was a clinic in Madrabar and very much multidisciplinary physios, EP, massage, dietetics, podiatry, the whole shebang, which was amazing. And at the time, I was like, oh my gosh, this is my dream job. Like, this is phenomenal. And I was there for 4.5, almost 5 years. Yeah, so literally just went straight from
Wow.
waited for my accreditation, my provider number, and then just kept going there, which was nice to have some familiarity in my new grad year.
Mm, such a good point.
Yeah.
Thinking of what you do today, had you tried to take that path when you graduated? How did you
Absolutely.
find, like, I guess, having access to those different professions, but some of those more senior clinicians and that side of things when you first wrapped up?
Oh, that was 100% like the most valuable thing about working there, and probably why I stayed for so long as well. That can be interpreted in some bad ways, but like we had regular mentoring sessions with the senior physio, which still beneficial being an EP and physio.
Mm.
Regular sessions with like our business owners, practice managers in terms of the business side of things, and like doctors' meetings and that fun stuff. But that learning that and having that regular support was just invaluable in the first few years. And I'm so grateful that I had, yeah, those fortnightly mentoring sessions with the senior physio, because I know that that doesn't happen in a lot of workplaces. And
Mm.
I think if I'd gone to a clinic that didn't have that in place, I wouldn't have known like where to look to get that support. And it, like, yeah, just would have been stuck in the mud without that support. I don't know what my first couple of years would have looked like. But so great to regularly collaborate with podiatry, massage, physio, and to not just have to do it all yourself. Like, obviously, I know a lot of clinics, like, you will just be an EP clinic or you're the only EP, and sometimes other professions don't know how to refer to you. But it was such a supportive, multidisciplinary environment.
Mm. Yeah. And even, I guess, like you mentioned, kind of having access to that business side of things and, seeing the paperwork. I remember pushing a lot of you all during placement of like, go sit with reception.
Yeah, yeah,
Previous me really wishes she'd sat with reception and figured out what she was doing with her everything.
yeah. And I'm so grateful for that.
So, how do you find that these days? Like, do you have to do a lot of the notes in the billing and that side of things yourself, or does that have a bit more balls in the clinic? And
Yes and no. So the women's health clinic, we don't have full-time admin reception staff. So like a lot of my shifts are early morning, late evening because of Pilates. So then
mm,
processing payments,
oh yeah,
sending invoices, and doing rebookings myself, which now I can do with my eyes closed. Um, and then like the Medicare rebates, the private health rebates, all of those fun things. And then, and still do, because I'm the only EP there, so I'm still quite involved with like, okay, I'll come to this doctor's meeting with you, with the owner.
mm,
Like, I'll talk myself up because she's like, oh, yeah, I can talk about you and your services, but you'll do a better job. Um, so still a lot of like advocating for myself and like generating my own clients in a way. And then Blossom, my support work EP job, we we collaborate. So both my friend and I, yeah, collaborate in business ideas and business expansion and how we can do that. So I'm still doing that work, but I'm not left to my own devices, which is nice to bounce off each other.
yeah, fantastic. While we're kind of on that, how did you find, and I guess how any tips or tricks or things that you found you improved in with having those conversations with doctors to really bring awareness of what services we offer and what an EP can do and building those relationships with one of our key referral sources, I guess.
Yeah. I think two things. One, you've got to just have something you can say like straight away to them, because they will likely come into their little lunchroom, get their lunch out of the fridge or see what food you've got like for 5 seconds, and you've got to like just say something to get their attention, or they're just going to go back to their room and eat their lunch. um, so it's actually a lot easier working at the women's health clinic compared to the general clinic I used to be at, because they will see like all of our stuff on display. They'll see the pelvic floor model, they'll see the pelvic wands and the dilators, and they're like, what the heck is this?
What have I walked into?
That gets their attention.
Genius.
So, yeah, if you don't have that, figure out your own way to get their attention. But then you've just got to be so confident and direct. I find that if you ask them, like, oh, what populations do you normally see? That it's very vague. They're already tapped out. You've you've got to ask them, do you see neurodiverse populations, or what services do you refer them to? Or you tell them about yourself and be like, I work with neurodiverse young females. Do you see many of them? Or do you need recommendations of a support worker and EP for neurodiverse females, for example?
Mm.
You've got to be very direct and confident with your little punchlines. Mm.
That's such a good point. And even if it's, even if you do see more diverse range of clients like that initially, and I remember it was like a mat leave cover for an EP once and like sat in a GP clinic for 1 day a week. And the GPs would come in like, oh, like who do you see? It's like, oh, pretty much everyone. Like all of your clients can come in. Like, that's nice. Like, you haven't referred anyone actually. Like,
Yeah,
okay, let me tell you who I'm seeing in this clinic at the moment. They're all diabetes.
yeah,
Let's start there.
yeah,
Just any diabetes. Oh, EP. Okay, that's what comes to mind.
yeah,
And then finding, okay, now I can start to feed you. Hey, I also
yeah.
see these
I
clients.
don't love seeing the diabetics or
I never mentioned low back pain.
even if you don't even know what your special interest area is or what you love, just pick one and a semi unique area so
Mm,
they remember you and start that relationship. Mm.
such a good point. Love it. Um, Speaking of the fun equipment that you all bring, how
Mm.
have you found that? I guess in recent years, there's a lot of new tech coming out and different flashy things, and I find at the uni we're often like, oh, we should buy this,
Yeah,
but then often finding, you know, not not much necessarily trickles into everyday practice because it's expensive and you need subscriptions. And
yeah.
how have you found? Are there the key things that have really evolved and changed since you practiced? So good old bread and butter, free
No,
weights and
yeah, I think the valve equipment's probably the fanciest thing, like the force plates. That's
mm,
the fanciest things that I've used, which was at my previous general private practice clinic. Whereas women's health clinic wise, like obviously very fortunate to have the pelvic floor physios to get a lot of the assessments with their internal assessments. Um, but otherwise, it's just basic general strength testing in terms of like how many single leg squats, single leg glute bridge, plank hold, like just very basic strength things as your pre and post measurements. Um, and obviously, a lot with them going off symptoms. So, like, do you still experience heaviness, any continence, leakage, versus not experiencing any more leakage? And then in terms of my other job, Blossom or neurodiversity, again, so basic because you're not going to get some fancy piece of equipment out with a kid who is like, what's this? I don't want to do it. Like, it's just never going to happen.
mm,
So I think it's very to the populations that I work with now, there's kind of no point using the fancy things. But not even the populations that I work with now, like a lot of your general ones as well. It's easy to overcomplicate things. And I'm not saying
mm,
place for fancy pieces of equipment and whatnot, but it's easy to get caught up in that, oh, this is new and shiny.
definitely. I think I've got my blood flow, blood flow restriction cuffs that I've never opened sitting downstairs. So it's like, oh, they're on sale. I need these.
Yeah.
I'm like, these are very scary looking on the start.
Learning about those at uni. Oh my gosh, I'm going to use these all the
Oh
time,
yeah, we loved those.
ever. Like, yeah.
Nice. Um, I hear you mentioned you do telehealth as well. So how do you find that, especially with, you know, exercise equipment? We often teach you all things in a fully equipped gym that's got everything you need, and if it doesn't, we can order it.
Yeah.
And then you say you do home visits and telehealth. So What's your favorite made up piece of exercise equipment?
Mm, Probably just like a chair. Gosh, you can do so much with a chair, like
Oh, good.
against a wall for safety. Um, but yeah, one of my lecturers said, like, you will turn into MacGyver, like being creative. And she was so right. I think also I was lucky in some aspects that my final year was the COVID year. So one of my places actually a telehealth placement. So I got a lot of practice and a lot of support with that, which
Yes, you did.
um, also a lot of the home visits will be NDIS clients, so they can actually get a lot of their own equipment. But we're
Mm.
like some dumbbells, some resistance bands, maybe like a wobble board, or some bean bags or hula hoops, and like nothing fancy. So yeah, particularly with telehealth, a chair is my favorite piece of equipment, or a full decent sized drink bottle.
Oh, you don't realize how heavy they can get.
Yeah. Or like a bag of rice, or like I just say, walk into your pantry or your garage. I promise you, you will find something.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we just went to the Solomon Islands for a month and worked with their like community rehab team. And they're like, okay, it started off week one. It's like, yeah, let's get some resistance bands and this. Like, great, they snap in the heat so fast.
Yeah, true.
Oh, okay. But everybody's got these giant 2 liter plastic water bottles. Like, okay, first start fill them with water and
Yep.
then with rice and then with rocks. Like, this changed quickly.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
um it's such a good point with the chair. One thing that's fun to do is look around your own house and think, okay, what in here could I turn into some exercise equipment? What could I do with this chair?
Yes.
One of my students doing like bent over rows with his bench at the kitchen.
Yeah.
Like,
So
oh,
good.
oh, good. Well, and then everyone, they see their chair and like, I should exercise. This
Yeah.
is this is my
It
gym.
creates those habits and associations. And I think telehealth is just such a great world for EPs that we actually haven't tapped into as much as we could.
Mm,
As we know, there's so many barriers to exercise, and obviously depending on the populations you work with, there can be extremely more barriers to exercise. Yeah, so it's great.
let's I'm sitting here watching this storm cloud roll in and like if I were in a clinic right now, half my clients would cancel.
Exactly. Oh,
So it's the Queensland special. For
but
those of you not in Queensland, this is cancellation day weather.
gosh,
Oh, oh, good times.
yeah.
Um, so I guess with some of the other stuff you do, did you find you had to do some extra little accreditations for that? Or a lot of it was kind of experience built and how did you go about that?
Yeah.
And any that you wouldn't do again?
Yeah. Wait. Well, firstly, during uni, I like did my level one sports trainer, and then I worked at a local AFL club and did sports trainer stuff, which I continued to do in my new grad year, just like that season that was in that year. And then it was too much on my plate. Um, so obviously, like I learned so much through my sports trainer stuff. I have absolutely zero regrets about, I think I did that for 4 or 5 seasons. Um, like invaluable. And obviously like strapping, like we can't do our hands on a massage, but strapping is a whole world that EPs can still do. So also
Mm,
force, and like that's still beneficial now. Even I was helping one of the physios at the clinic with ankle strapping. Like the EP was helping the physio. So that was, yeah. 10 out of 10 recommend sports trainer work, even just to help build connections and just confidence interacting with
mm.
patients as well. And then I did my level one mat work Pilates and my level one equipment Pilates, which is like the reformer, the trap table, the one,
Crazy looking chair.
yeah. Um, only use reformer. I So I had done my placement where I got my first job for 6 weeks, pretty much jumped in a Pilates class every single day, was just sore for 6 weeks. And then as a requirement for the job, I had to go get my Pilates qualification. So because I'd done that for 6 weeks, I didn't learn anything on that little weekend Pilates course. It was literally just for the piece of paper, and it was an exorbitant amount of money, but it's even higher now. It's ridiculous. But I know,
You would have already graduated, hey? So you didn't get the student options there.
and obviously there's so many different people that run Pilates courses. Yeah, pick and choose who you do yours with. um, but I actually know of quite a few EPs that have taught Pilates at their clinics that haven't had the certification. They've just been like taught like on the job. They haven't necessarily gone and just been a Pilates instructor, like they're being an EP teaching Pilates. So I don't regret doing it because at the time I was told it was a job requirement, but I didn't learn anything from it. So I would just be like very nitpicky, like, do I actually need to do it? Um, and then I think the only other type qualification I did was when I went back to uni and I did my Masters of Women's Health Medicine. Um, it sounds a bit fancy, doesn't it? Which was really cool. It wasn't just EPs. There was nurses and midwives and doctors and osteos and acupuncture. Like it was really, really cool.
Where
Um,
was that?
University of New South Wales.
Oh, amazing.
That was
I'll
all
give
on
you a shout out, UNSW.
it,
Wow.
which was obviously great to still work part time, full time, as well as study. Um, yeah, so that, like, I'd been learning some women's health stuff, and obviously you can do like your weekend PD courses or some online
Mm.
courses, but nothing compared to doing a degree. And it wasn't a research master, it was a coursework theory master's. So I think it was 8 or 9 subjects in total across the masters, and one of them was just like advanced anatomy and physiology, one of them was the statistics, and then the rest of them were electives. So I could choose what subjects I wanted to learn about, and the assignments I could choose what topic to write about within menopause. So obviously I chose like bone density and non-pharmacological management of bone density in menopause. But to obviously then have the research, the opportunity to deep dive in the research in that. So then that, yeah, just astronomically increased my women's health knowledge and confidence. And even though it wasn't, like, it didn't have placement, it wasn't a practical master's, because I was still seeing clients at the time, I didn't really need that because I could just implement
Mm.
the theory and the coursework as I was going. Um, and then from that, then that just created opportunities. Like I reached out to the Women's Health Clinic and I was like, this is why you should hire me. Like I've just done this and that worked. So don't regret that. That was a great little niche area. Like I know there's a lot of, and you can probably talk more to this, Jenna, there's a lot of like oncology pathways with further education. And I know there's like a high performance and there's an S&C. And so obviously there's the women's health. I don't know of any other kind of specific areas. And so I don't know if there's cardiac ones, if cardiac is your thing, but any formal like university qualification and coursework really just gives you that leg up.
Looking back on that, you doing that, you know, within 6 months of finishing versus
Mm.
when you'd already been out in there, did you really find having that chance to go out and explore and, get involved a little bit? I remember you really going into that kind of bone density osteoporosis and getting that exposure. Was
Yeah,
that really that trigger of, okay, I've found what excites me, but I'm also in a space where I can be bringing this back versus I've just finished my bachelor's. What else can I do?
yeah. I am so glad. So I started working 2021, started my master's degree 23. I am so glad that I had that 2.5, 3 years to just figure out what I was doing as a general EP and
Mm.
yeah, get confident with that general stuff and to not study, like to yeah, literally just figure out being an EP and like that's it. And to then, like, obviously, I dropped my clinical hours whilst I studied. So, like, got to consider financially as well, saved a bit of money first before doing that. Gosh, so glad. And obviously, it would have been great. All the osteoporosis people that I saw in my first couple of years, all the menopause women, would have been so great to have had that knowledge, but I wouldn't have learnt as much in terms of how to apply it if I didn't have the first couple of years under my belt. Um, and like I thought I knew what I wanted to do coming out as a new grad. That changed. And so, and for some people, it won't totally acknowledge that. Like, yep, this is 100% what I want to do. Go for it. Um, but yeah, take a little bit of time to figure out what being an EP is like, figure out what you don't like, figure out what you do like, and then if it is an area that you want to go down. But also in saying that, I applied for my master's on Boxing Day, and it got accepted on like the 2nd of January, and it started like the 20th of January. So there's
The end of the month. Good, just
yeah,
that way you're not contemplating it so much.
yeah, don't,
Don't overthink it.
yeah,
Oh, it's such a like interesting point of discussion that comes up. But some of our placement meetings and all these other things of, do we try to build students that are specialists versus generalists? And, if they are really passionate about a certain area. So for those listening, like oncology is my thing.
mm,
Um, but it was very much, I fell into it by complete error. I just was the only person that wanted to do the early morning sessions, and it was oncology clients, and just like, oh my gosh, this is great. But, I was going to work in sport forever.
yeah,
And now I realize I'd rather be an athlete than work with myself. So,
uh,
but, but that point of, figuring out what you don't like as well. And that, placement can be good for that. You might go somewhere like, oh, I hate this. Like, that's fine. You're still getting skills out of it. You're still building those networks, but now you just cross this massive thing off your list. So
yeah,
I think my first placement was cardiac rehab. It's like, nope, this is just like, I love chatting, but I
yeah,
can't do this. But I never would have known that, because in my head, it's like, this is it. Like, I'm going to be at the Heart Institute. And, I love all the cardiac surgeries and stuff, and got that, like, I can't do this. Like, this is so, and it's one thing to consider too when you are, graduating and applying for those first jobs. And every now and then I'll get a student reach out, like, I've only been here a few weeks and this isn't for me, but
yeah,
I can't quit. Like, I've just got, like, they'd rather you leave now than
yeah,
after they invest in you for 6 to 9 months or a year,
mm,
and then suddenly, like, I'm out. Sorry, this was never my place, because there will be someone that fits them.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
people aren't, if they see that you've only stayed somewhere for a few weeks on your CV, they're going to ask why. So you get that chance, like, it wasn't a good fit for me. It wasn't the space I wanted to be in, or, the culture didn't align, or they'd rather that than I sucked it up, was miserable for a year, made everyone around me miserable. And then they left after they'd invested all their resources.
yeah. And I think also on that, when well, that was a little while ago when I was a new grad thinking about it, but, and my cohort was only 13 people. And obviously, I know cohorts are bigger now, but, and being the COVID year, we kind of felt like we just had to take the first job that was offered to us.
Mm.
And like, yes, obviously you want a job, you want to be earning some money and not be a student anymore. But like, I think in a job interview, obviously they're interviewing you to see if you're right for the role, but you're also interviewing them. And so it's not just the like, oh, I should ask them a couple of questions at the end to show that I'm interested in the job. Like, no, you actually want to know what they're like to work for and what the other employees are like, and maybe why did the last person in this role leave. And yeah, don't, you're interviewing them to make sure that it's right for you as well.
Mm. It's so true. And especially these days, whether people want to or not, most businesses have to use social media to some extent. So have a look at their Instagram. Are they going out for, employee bonding activities every week? And that is your worst nightmare. Don't apply, because then you're going to feel guilty the whole time.
Yeah.
Versus, do they really focus on just this clean, easy, straightforward, simple educational content? Like, that's my jam. I just
Yeah.
want to go, do my job, and then that's it.
Yeah.
So, do your homework because very rarely are you going to rock up to an interview and they're going to, okay, here's a client, go,
Yeah.
show us what you got. You can learn a lot of the technical skills. Do you find that most the places that you've been to typically have kind of, a way they do assessments or kind of a bit of that, oh, I guess, structure or guidance in the technical side of
Yeah.
things?
In terms of like treatment plans and like treatment mapping and yeah, that and I've heard from a lot of other people as well that yeah, individual companies will have their own way of doing things like okay, so you do your initial assessment and then you're recommending them to do come to the group strength classes twice a week for 8 weeks. They buy this pack of classes and like that's their kind of business model, which I totally get. Um yeah. Yeah.
With kind of during your university times, you've already mentioned the level one sports trainer, which is great because we've been doing a lot of work with Sportsmed Australia trying to get more unis having kind of these RPL opportunities of, a lot of courses by the end of your first year, you're eligible to do something towards your level one. And a lot of times the jobs are paid, especially after you get that initial bit of experience in your belt. But
Yeah.
anything else you did kind of during your uni time or looking back, maybe wish you'd done at the time?
I wish that I like got my Pilates qualifications earlier. I know I just went on a whole tangent about don't need a certificate, didn't learn anything. But if I had done the Pilates courses earlier, um, then I could have been working. I would have obviously learned stuff because I wouldn't have known anything. And then I could have been working as a Pilates teacher and then just having confidence and exposure in group classes. And obviously, you're going to come across some injuries and even general
Mm.
Pilates classes. So having, I guess, practice at doing some regressions and progressions for those different people. And I think, and like I totally understand everyone's situation in terms of living situations and finances, but finding a job if possible, that is actually aligned and you're actually going to learn something out of it rather than just being a barista, for example. Like I worked at the Athlete's Foot. So, like, yeah, retail store, but gosh, I learned so much in terms of
Mm.
dietary world. And yeah, analyzing someone's gait, recommending footwear, and like that's still ingrained now with all of particularly my oldies or my clients. I'm like, you need new shoes. You have no idea how that's affecting your feet, up the chain to the knees, how you're walking, your back pain. Like, please get some new shoes. And obviously, being on the Gold Coast, so many people walk around barefoot or just in flip flops. Like, that I could go on a whole tangent. So that was my little part-time casual job during uni. 10 out of 10 recommend that. And obviously my sports trainer.
Mm.
Between those two jobs, that was like my income and yeah, learnt so much through those. So yeah, the only thing I would change would be adding in Pilates a bit earlier. Mm.
A good point too, because that's probably one of the best benefits of being like both Ozactive and ESSA have free student memberships. But with that free membership comes discounts that you will never ever again have in your life when you're not a student.
Yeah.
So it's worth looking into it. It's free to sign up, but then what options do they have? And a lot of the providers, if you email them and tell them you're a struggling student, sometimes they'll give you even more of a discount. Or if there isn't a clear discount on something, they're often happy to knock it down to
Mm.
make it more feasible because it helps them grow their industry in the end. So it's definitely something to look into if you've been thinking. I kind of when I did my PhD, did my Pilates instruction then. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a student again. Yes, let's do it now. But any kind of group fitness or those workshops, or even going to conferences and meeting people and exploring that side of things, if you can swing it at all, do it when you're a student because you've got that access to cheaper prices than you'll ever have again.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many I see like allied health assistant roles as well. And
Mm.
I don't know if there's a certificate you have to do to become allied health assistant, but yeah, that would be such a great option as well.
A lot of, depending on the state you're in, um, a lot of times, like the accrediting bodies in that space will give you recognition of prior learning depending on what point in your degree.
Mm,
So the allied health assistant, and some places that's just what they advertise for. But a lot of times, if you go and say, "Hey, I'm studying this. I'm in my second year," a lot of times, like, sweet, good enough for us.
yeah.
Um, even think of those positions of working reception for a health clinic or a GP clinic, or anything that gets you that initial exposure. You're still getting those people skills. You're getting to learn, the business and the admin side that future you really wish you'd done more of. The billing, contracting, marketing, all those sides of things. So, just something to kind of consider. And a lot of these places, it's such a value add for them to have someone that's in that learning space in the industry, just to the same reason with prac students, like they help me stay relevant and figure out what the new things are. So it's that value out of, yes, it's great to get a job where you can, but if you have that opportunity, looking at those spaces that kind of get you that first step in the door, it's a small industry in the end. You'll learn every third person knows someone.
Same.
But
Again, it ties back to it helps you figure out what you don't like or what you do like. So, for example, sports trainer stuff, if you think that like you want to work with a sports team and go down that high performance route, which is what I thought I wanted to do, you get a bit of an insight into the how you would get your foot in the door and all of the volunteering and unpaid hours, and it's a who you know world. And and even like I mean this in the nicest way, thinking about the footy boys I worked with, but maybe you don't want to be working with them and the coaches and in that high pressure environment. And like, yeah, it might be fun when they win the grand final, but the rest of the season, yeah. So what you do during uni, any little opportunities that you can explore can help you to figure out what you do and you don't like.
mm, that's a good point. Especially like you might get in a clinic environment, be like, oh, I can't imagine myself here.
Yeah.
Like, never mind. I want to, look at options for working for a mobile company or telehealth, or actually, I love the gym environment. If you can teach group fitness, you are worlds apart, especially even in a lot of EP clinics these days. We see these small group supervised sessions, and things are still set up in a group exercise space. And I don't think I've ever seen more injuries or conditions than I have in my general population group fitness classes compared to when I'm actually in a clinic. Like, so, still building those skills.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like, I've got this injury, but it's fine. And then they try to do a lunge and they're like, I can't do it.
I
Okay.
just work through it.
Yeah.
Like, no, stop. Oh. And it's definitely one of those skills that a I still work casually teaching group fitness, and there's always places that need instructors for 1,000 different classes.
Yeah.
But you can also travel with it. So the brief time I lasted in the UK, I taught Pilates mat work because it was an easy, yep, cool, here's my qualification, off you go. So, kind of have that consideration. The downfall of especially the EP qualification is countries are still working on aligning.
Yeah.
Um, the UK is probably the easiest one to transfer to. Basis is pretty good with pay us your money and over you come. But it's a very different profession depending on the country that you work in. So that's kind of something to think about, but definitely something it's much easier to move around these days than it used to be as well. And a lot of countries don't yet have this qualification too, which sets you up for a nice space of they don't know what it is. It's
Yeah.
easy to be like, that is what I do.
Yeah. Like I know New Zealand kind of had two different boards and they're kind of like ESSA 1, ESSA 2, and now they're merging this year. And it was something like they only had 100 accredited EPs last year, which is baffling. And so I don't know if EPs are practicing uncredited or if there's
Okay.
only 100 and they're all moving over to Australia. But yeah, it's so different country to country. And also,
Fun.
you might not be called an exercise physiologist, but the work you're doing is still EP.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, such a good point. Oh, like kinesiologists in Canada and all these crazy. So hard to spell.
Yeah.
So, have you ever had to interview anyone yourself?
Oh, I don't think so. More just like I've worked with the placement students, and so like not really interviewing them, but doing the initial like your induction orientation and taking them through and doing their assessments and whatnot. But um, no, at the studio, we had at my first clinic private practice, we had students every 6 week block, like the whole entire year. We had minimum one student at all times. Sometimes we had two students, and we then when we'd come around to the time when we needed to hire an EP, then the practice manager and the owner would come to us and be like, okay, think about all the students that you've had. Who are the best ones? Like, who should we reach out to and be like, hey, do you want a job? Um, that's been my involvement in interviewing.
Oh, what kind of things stick out and stuck out to you? So obviously I run placements and have for a lot of years. And have asked kind of all the placement supervisors around Australia too to share this. So hopefully there'll be a number of students watching this. But how can you really, maximize that time on placement? What are some good ways to get noticed?
Like, obviously, we look for your enthusiasm and curiosity in terms of asking the supervisor questions, and like if it's not suitable during session afterwards being like, okay, so like why did you do this assessment or this exercise, or like let's talk more about this condition. But there can be such thing as too much enthusiasm. um like if I think it's really valued when the student can like almost take a step back and see the practitioner and see like, okay, they've got to do these admin tasks, they've got to do the reports. One, when is appropriate and where is appropriate for me to ask these questions. But two, how could I actually like help them out and help to take things off their plate that I'm actually going to learn through. So whether it's let me have a go at writing this EPC report, then we'll come back together and we'll refine it if needed. Or you're going to be writing this home program for Bob, let me have a crack at it, and then we'll come back together and refine it. Um, like there's such basic things in terms of showing initiative and interest and enthusiasm, but you'd be surprised at how hard that is actually to see. I know that placement is intimidating. I am so naturally an introvert, if you can believe that. But like just put yourself out there and have a go. And it's so cliche, but who cares if you're wrong? Like that is why you're a student. That is why you've got your supervisor there. If you suggest this exercise, what's the worst that's going to happen? Your supervisor says no. Like, oh well, life goes on. You had a crack, and I bet you the supervisor will think of you way more highly for having a crack at it than sitting there being too scared to be like, oh, maybe this exercise would be good. No.
Mm. Oh, it's such a good point. Like one way to view placement is you should never have downtime
Mm,
in like you should have switch out and chill out time after, but you shouldn't be waiting for what do I do next? And that's such a good way of looking at it. Okay, take a step back and think what's going to go into the process that this practitioner has
mm,
ahead of them. Where can I jump in? Or hey, okay, we just finished that assessment. I was actively observing you do it. Ask, do you mind if I have a go at trying to write a program for them? You may know they've already prescribed them a program or they're going to do it themselves, but it's a chance for you to learn of, okay, I've sat through, or, what other questions might I have asked? Or, hey, we didn't get a chance to do any objective assessments. What comes to mind for it? Or, I'm looking at the objective assessments the practitioner did. Why did they do those? What did they get out of it? Or, why did they ask this question about how's your sleep?
Yeah.
So, such a good point to there's always those things to do, and you're going to stand out if you take initiative in a productive way, we'll say.
Yeah.
So don't just look for busy work, look for correctly productive.
You want to learn, you want to develop yourself.
Mm.
Mm.
If anyone online has any questions too, feel free to pop your mic on or turn your chat on. Just got a couple more minutes left.
Mhm.
Um, this might be too long ago because you kind of shifted, but do you happen to remember any interview questions that threw you or things that you might have been asked, the first week or two on the job where you're like, I have no idea.
Because even still, like you always keep your eyes open at other jobs. So I've done other interviews along the way.
Mm.
Um, Gosh, like just your classic ones, like you will get asked, like what's an area you could improve on, and like you will get asked those basic ones. Also, I'm noticing a lot these days that a lot of like HR companies will interview you first. There's a lot of like staged interviews. You're not just going to go straight to like the owner or the senior EP, and then if you're good, you get the job. Um, there's a lot of screening. So if you think about, or if you know that you've got your first interview with a HR person, they're not going to be asking your clinical knowledge. They're going to be just sussing you out as a person. Um, a question that I always get asked is like, when's a time that you've been challenged and what did you do to overcome it? Um, which, like, yeah, of course, we're challenged all the time and we have to overcome things all the time. But on the spot, it's like, oh my gosh,
Right now.
yeah. Like my mind's just gone blank. So having that answer ready, and even if like you're a new grad and you obviously haven't been working, like there's still going to be times either as a student with your part-time job, just in life, like there's something you can pull on. Um, yeah, I don't, nothing really clinically that I think I've been thrown on to start with because that like they're not really going to ask you that first. They might be like, what would you do in this situation if you didn't know this condition? Um, but yeah, more those like basic HR type questions.
Which are the hard ones?
Yeah, they are. Or like,
Oh,
what is 3 ways that you could do to help grow the business? I don't know. I'm not even working at the business.
who are you again?
Yeah.
Oh. Um, it's interesting too, because obviously like I get put down as a reference for a lot. And you get those like, hello, I'm from such and such recruitment company. I'm like, okay, cool. Here's the standard questions that come along. But make sure your references ideally know you from the last few years.
Mm.
Like every now and then I'll put down for one and I haven't seen them in 6 or 7 years and then just got a random question of, hey, I'm applying for this job. Can I put you down? Like, I mean, you can, but I'm not going to be very useful.
Yeah.
So, and they know that. They're like, oh, why don't you have anyone more
Yeah.
recent?
Yeah.
So, we've got a question. Excellent. Um, really want to work in a hospital setting as an EP. What do you know what that look like? And do you reckon it's harder to be employed in a hospital than private practice? I'm going to preface that with one big consideration on at the moment is where you live. So Queensland is probably the furthest behind with EP roles in hospital settings. Um, there are some in places like Common Clinic and Robina's got like a cardiac space. there's been work over the years to try to grow. So we're seeing, there's a lot more EPs in mental health in Queensland. It's probably one of the biggest spaces that we see because of the work that's been done to really collate all the information and resources around this is so valuable, especially as an inpatient. So mental health in Queensland is probably the biggest space. When you get to New South Wales, when you get to Victoria, EP roles in the hospital are probably pretty, you'd find those not as easily as private practice. I think that's still kind of EP bread and butter, but there's definitely a plethora compared to here, for example. Um, you know, Southern Cross we've got two campuses in New South Wales and one in Queensland. And I'm constantly getting job adverts for New South Wales Health and for some of those roles. So it's one thing to consider if you really see yourself in that hospital space. Be open to moving, but
Mm.
also know that it's something that is slowly building, but they'll often really look of, do you have a strong foundation already? Because a lot of the times, especially depending on your state, like most of the roles we see in Queensland, for example, are for senior EPs in the hospital system. So really being able to build that setting up. But there's also places like clinical measures where you are still in a hospital setting and you might be doing cardiac testing and respiratory testing and sleep testing. So that's probably one of the kind of forgotten areas of the industry, and we're doing some work to bring that back on the table as a great option. But it does bring you that clinical and hospital setting, but in a different kind of side of the industry. So definitely one to start looking at job adverts as they come out even now and think, what are the few things on here that I can start to set myself up for to be competitive for these positions, especially knowing that the hospital roles are going to start growing more and more finally as well. So now's a really good time of go through job adverts and maybe reach out on LinkedIn to someone that's doing that role. Think what helped you prepare for this and get that job. So really recommend if you kind of have a bit of an idea about where you see yourself, start to look at those job adverts now and think, what can I start to build to get myself in a more competitive space? And reach out, hey, I'm a student. Again, another good thing with ESSA student membership is you get free insurance if you want to do extra placement as well. So you've kind of got that chance of, can I get a little bit of exposure experience, build those networks? Reaching out and asking for things while you're a student, people are so much less likely to say no.
Mm.
It's kind of that really good little lottery ticket of, hey, I'm a student, I'd love to even just come spend a few days with you all and get a feel, or have a chat around what I can be doing to set myself up. So really take advantage of being able to pull that student card these days as much as you can. All right. Well, that brings us to our time. So, did you have any last words of wisdom, tips and tricks, etc.?
Think what I was saying before, break the burnout cycle. I strongly believe, potentially unpopular opinion, strongly believe that very few people can work clinical full-time hours, like 38, 40 hours a week, Monday to Friday, in a clinic without constantly being in and out of burnout. I think it takes a certain type of person and personality to love that, enjoy that, and want to do that and not be in and out of burnout. So, and like it's such a spoken about thing, burnout, blah, blah, blah. But like really having that self awareness and of yourself and knowing if something is suited to you or not. Um, and the second thing is like thinking back to when I was a student, like, oh, this is my dream job. And then when I got like post graduation, when I got what I thought was my dream job, and then when I got what I thought was my dream job again, it, for me anyway, it was kind of leaving me like unsatisfied. I'm like, oh, like, is this it? So the way that I look at it now is creating my dream week. which, as you can kind of tell, is what I've done with, we've got some support work. I'm outside in nature. Like today, if the rain holds out, we're going to go to Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary and I get paid for it. Uh, I've still obviously got my clinical EP. I've got my women's health that I love. I've got my neurodiversity. I've got my support work. I've got my home visit and telehealth. I've got my clinic. That, and I get to do fun things like this, like presentations. That is my dream week rather than one dream job.
And it's so true. Like, God, I've been an EP since 2009.
Mm.
And I think the longest I've lasted in like consistent clinical practice was maybe a year.
Yeah.
And then, went back to, I ran a yoga studio and then I'd have clients and then I teach group fitness. And those are the weeks when you kind of get that, I'm still excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, there are those people like,
Yeah.
yes, being in the clinic full time, that's my jam.
Right.
Let's go. But remember too, and this is probably something that, is a challenge in a lot of our degrees, is we don't prepare you all for that. You become that safe space for your clients.
Mm.
If you then don't have that deload yourself over time, it's going to build and build and build. So, always have that, especially when you're on placement, start that habit now of, well, that's me just go, okay, I'm done. I'm there. I'm empathetic. I'm able to fully invest in my clients, but I'm still able to fully invest in myself too. So use this time to really start practicing what your own health and well-being side of things looks like.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much. And thanks
No.
for coming, everyone. Have a lovely Monday.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye.